Hey, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me today as I do a layout with 49 and Market's Vintage Artistry in Colour Teal collection. The background paper I'm working with here is the Vintage Artistry Teal Breeze paper. Now, today I'm retaining the selvage strip at the bottom of this page because it has a beautiful quote on it that says, "Love this most." And it's really appropriate for the layout that I'm working on, which is using that photo that's off to the right of myself and my son from quite a few years ago. So when there's a really good selvage strip that works in with my layout, I really like to keep it. So when I do that, I trim the page down from the top to 12 inches rather than trimming the selvage strip off. To tie that selvage strip in with the rest of the page, I did add, and you would have seen it very briefly, I added in some rub-on stitching from the Vintage Artistry Teal and Mango rub-on transfers. So there's some stitching in that rub-on pack, and I added a strip of stitching across the top of the right-hand side of that selvage strip. I'm now adding some strips of rub-ons down the right-hand edge, and they're from the Coral and Natural rub-on transfer pack. So they're like a stripe, an angled stripe strip, and they're going to show above and below where I'm going to put my photo, because you can see that this paper has butterflies printed on it, and I'm going to use rub-ons from the rub-on transfers in the Teal and Mango to create a arc of butterflies. So I'm going to continue those butterflies to create an arc around the page, and the photo is going to sit on the right within the arc. And then at the moment I'm working on a cluster of embellishments on the left-hand side of the page, which will balance that photo on the right. So I have used another selvage strip, and that selvage strip on the left is from the Vintage Artistry Teal flutter paper. And I'm going to use that whole selvage strip because I use part of it to create the base of this embellishment cluster on the left, and then I'm actually going to use part of it for my title. So the other parts of this embellishment cluster are a ticket from the Vintage Artistry Teal ephemera stack, and then a little phrase tags that says, "You are simply amazing and you are loved," which is from the laser cuts elements in the 12 by 12 collection pack. And I have layered those up, and then I have added in some flowers from those laser cut elements, and they're tucked down underneath the ticket. And then I have added in one of the laser cut element large butterflies to that cluster as well. I think I must come back to do that. I'm after the end of this video, which as we get closer to the end, I do come back and add some more elements to that cluster, so I'll talk about that in a moment. But now I've moved on to working on the photo, and I am using one of the 4x6 photo frames that are in the laser cut elements in the collection pack. This doesn't have a backing to this frame, so I'm just cutting a piece of paper slightly bigger than the photo, and I'm gluing the photo onto that, putting glue around the photo, and then I'm putting that frame onto that piece of paper. So it's just a piece of printer paper, and I'll use that to support the frame around the photo, because the photo is a 4x6 and the hole in the frame is approximately a 4x6. And so it needs something to support it. And then what I'm doing is I'm using lots of different elements out of the teal ephemera stack to create lots of layers and texture underneath this photo. So what I like to do when I'm creating a stack of different elements below a photo is that I like to create it not directly on the page. So I create it freehand like I'm doing here, and then when it's all done, I'll stick it down onto the page. So I'm using, labels, bits of what looks like bits of torn paper and newspaper and envelopes, and I'm inking edges of stuff, and I'm layering it all up, and it creates a whole heap of interest behind the photo. So I only want little bits sticking out at the top and the side, not on the right-hand side because I'm going to sit that up hard against the edge of the layout, but on the left-hand side and the top and the bottom. So I just add glue, layer it up, get it in exactly the right place that I want it. The benefit of wet glue is that if I want to move it around a little bit, once I put it down, I've got a bit of time to move it before the wet glue grabs, and so that gives me a bit of flexibility. You can see I'm also using some chipboard offcuts here to create some dimension in the layers. That can be used to help even things up because some of the pieces that I'm using to create the layering will not be full pieces, so I need to make sure that the whole stack lays straight so that when I stick it to the page, it's not lower on one side than on the other, and so that chipboard can help balance out the height that's on the left side of that photo. Put the chipboard on the right and it balances it out. So you can see I'm getting pretty close there, and I'm sticking some glue down on the back. I'm happy that it's all good to go, and I stick that down now. But you can see that I had it all made up and I was happy with it before I stuck it down. I think that's a lot easier because one thing when you're creating that many layers under a photo is you don't want too much of anything showing, otherwise you're going to end up with a huge amount sticking out the side at the end. So by creating it separately, you can make sure that it doesn't get too big. So now I am adding some of the tie elements or string elements that are in the laser cut elements in the collection pack. I love these. They're a new addition to the collection packs from the last few collections that 49 and Market have released, and they are just gorgeous. They really look like real string, but they're actually printed on paper. So I've put some of those at the bottom of the photo frame, and I think they're just gorgeous. And now I am turning a word strip, which has actually come off the selvage off that flutter paper. So the same thing that the strip of teal with the stitching on came off on the left-hand side. And I've punched a hole in it, and I've used a little bit of twine, and have turned it into a tag that I am hanging from the ties that are around the bottom of the photo. And that's my title. So I have really used my selvage strips well for this layout. And now I am laying out these extra butterfly rub-ons to get that arc that I was talking about earlier. So these rub-ons match in perfectly with the butterflies that are in this paper. And so when it's finished, it really does look like that these butterflies were actually part of this pattern paper. And I love the finished product of this beautiful arc of butterflies that comes up and wraps around the photo. These, if you haven't used 49 and Market rub-on transfers, they are beautiful. They are such good quality and they come off so easily. I often rub them on with my fingernail. They are that good. They are just the most beautiful product, and they work really well to rub layers over each other too. Really, really lovely. So I'm just adding some wishing bubbles and baubles from the teal colour version of those just to the right of that left cluster. I'm just looking at the layout and seeing what else is needed. So I'm just shifting things up a bit actually, because I decided it needed to go up a little bit more. Moving those bubbles. They're really cute. They say hello, happy and best. So sticking that down again, but I am going to change my mind because I am going to move things there. But I am just sticking on now some screws from the Vintage Artistry Essentials hardware. They are so cute. They're like epoxy little screw tops. Very cute. And then at the top of the photo, I actually end up attaching some photo turns as well, which are really cute as well. And then I am adding some flowers at the moment. Now these flowers are in a parchment colour, and I've just used 2 flowers on this layout, one on the bottom of the photo and one on the flower cluster one on the embellishment cluster on the left. And I think that that's just the perfect touch. It doesn't need too much with all of the butterflies that are on this layout. So those flowers just give that lovely little touch. So that's the photo turns that I'm adding now to the top right corner of the photo cluster. And now I am going to add some distressed splash elements from the coral and natural rub-on transfers. So in that pack I apologise, I think I'm going to add some tabs to the top of the photo stack. So you can add, well, I will end up adding names and dates up the top of that. Great little spot to put some journaling. And now I think I'm going to add some rub-ons. Yes, so these are like distressed splatters that are in that rub-on transfer pack. They just add another bit of texture to the background paper, and they're in a natural colour, which is very similar to the colours that have been used in the pieces behind the photo in that stack. And it's a nice touch around that photo. Now, I am checking it out and I think I may have finished. However, I have come back to this layout later and added more elements to it after I've given consideration to it. So I actually decided it needed some more of the natural colour added to it. So I added another strip in the embellishment cluster on the left, and I added another phrase strip below the photo which says "My heart is full," and that is from the laser cut elements. And I have added a torn piece in the top left corner of the layout where I have put a piece of ephemera behind it. I've also added a large butterfly and a small butterfly from the laser cut elements. All of these natural elements, I think, make the teal stand out even more and work really well with this colour range. You'll see that I also added some splashes of white acrylic paint across the arc of butterflies. This helps to finish the layout and pull it all together. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you either here again on the 49 and Market channel or my own YouTube channel. Thank you. Bye.